Welcome to Sharing the Mddl, where recovering perfectionists, overachievers, and anyone in the middle of a struggle come together to learn to embrace the messy middles of life. I'm Lacey, your friend in the middle and guide, whose claim to fame this week is finally tackling the giant pile of my children's art worksheets, everything that comes home from daycare. It's so much. And so we finally tackled it to sort and organize it. And I'm real proud. Today, I'm joined by Laura Sinclair. Laura is a public relations and social media marketing executive with over a decade of experience building robust digital strategies for some of the world's biggest brands. A serial entrepreneur, Laura teaches entrepreneurs how to adapt the strategies of big brands for their own businesses. Laura has her own podcast, This Mother Means Business, that you can listen to. And we really dive into her transition during the pandemic from a physical business owner to the awesome work that she's doing now. I think you'll be really impressed with Laura, just like I was. Let's jump on in. Welcome, Laura. I'm excited to have you here on Sharing the Mddl. We've had to reschedule this a ton of times, so it's just, I'm always so excited when that happens to actually get the person in front of me like, hello, I see you.
I know, you want to talk about the middle. This is just like, find the time to record this because of all of the things that are going on. But I'm so glad that we finally made time, Lacey. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining me, of course. And I usually like to start our conversation with the question of kind of what does the middle mean to you? I find people tend to have a visceral reaction about what the middle is for them.
I think there's a little bit of heaviness around it. I think to me, when I think of the middle, I think of the messy middle, which there have been seasons of life that have certainly been messier, more middle-ish than others. But I do think that I live in a little bit of a constant state of middle. I mean, I have 2 little kids and I'm an entrepreneur and there's a lot that comes with that. But when I think about the word middle, I think about when you are kind of stuck between where you are and where you want to be, right? It's that space where you're on the journey. You're not really sure how much farther there is to go. You're being pulled in 17 different directions and you're just hoping that the middle will be over soon.
Yes, that is very much kind of my perspective too. It's really funny because sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I love the middle. I love the journey. I'm like, no, I want to reach my goal. I want to get...
Yeah, I mean, there are aspects of the middle. I think, I'm a person that is really trying to learn to love the journey, but I'm also never going to and I think there is beauty in there. There's beauty in the middle for sure. But I'm also a person that is more than happy just to be totally honest about the fact there are some parts about it that are not so great.
It's hard. And that's why I started this, is because I struggle so much with those hard parts. And what is your middle moment you'd like to have us walk through today?
I'd love to go back to 2020. Will you take a trip with me to 2020?
I would love to.
I now have 2 children. I have a 2-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. She's 5.5. She'll yell at me if I said she's we're there. But in 2020, March of 2020, when we all closed down for 2 weeks out of abundance of caution, that was so sweet that we thought that was all it was going to be at the time. I actually owned a brick and mortar gym.
Ooh.
Yeah. I live in Ontario, Canada. And Ontario, Canada was, and I believe as far as North America goes, the most restrictive place as far as COVID restrictions and closures and things like that. We were in the mess. Nowhere in North America was closed or more restricted than here in Ontario, Canada. So I owned a CrossFit gym. We had about 215 members. And when we closed down for 2 weeks, I was 8 weeks pregnant with my son. And nobody knew that I was pregnant. And we sort of went through this season of, my daughter was home. We were trying to run, virtual fitness classes, which I don't know if you've ever attended a virtual fitness class, but let me tell you, running them is not fun. And so I would run them from my garage, in my attempt to keep my business open. We're very fortunate that we were able to have a gym set up in the garage. And so we'd run the class, I'd turn off the Zoom, and then I would throw up on the floor because I was pregnant and nobody knew. So
At least it waited until after,
it was
that's something.
yeah, you know what? It was very my nausea was very respectful of the things that I had to get done. But I was in a season of the middle, and now I'm in a place where, we ended up closing the gym in December of 2020, permanently made that decision. And now I'm in a place where, my son's 2 and I'm doing something totally different, and can look back at that time, which at the time felt awful.
Scary. It had to be so scary.
Uncertain. Oh gosh, terrifying. It was like, what did we just do?
Yeah.
And people always say to me, I was even at a birthday party this past weekend, and someone said, well, are you still running the gym? It's like, oh no, we closed it in 2020. And they're like, I'm so sorry. No, I'm good. I'm okay. Like, thanks. I'm okay. But I think that for me, and I think, motherhood and entrepreneurship, that's kind of the journeys that I've chosen. And I think that is a forever middle moment. I think when I look back at the messiest time for me, it was definitely that sort of first half of 2020, waiting for, like, pregnant, trying to balance all of the things, and then making the decision to close the gym. We made the decision in October, so shortly after my son was born, and then having to pivot my entire life.
Okay, I have so many questions now. Well, I want to start with a CrossFit gym for me seems really intense.
Sure.
So I could see how that clientele would not translate to Zoom really well, right? Because you're there, you're doing your things. It's not like you're in a dance class where there is community, but I feel like it's different. And this is me never doing CrossFit. So, would you agree that that's part of it?
Yes and no. I mean, like,
okay.
We loaned out all of our equipment to our members, when we found out we were closing. And so people were able to have, their barbells and their weights at home. And there is definitely, when people think you're a CrossFit, if you haven't done CrossFit before, there is this perception that it's this really intense thing. But the reality is most people in CrossFit are like 30 to 40-year-old women that just want to feel better about themselves and really love being in the community. For me, I'm just an in-person person.
Yeah.
Fitness was always, coaching fitness, it's not something I do anymore, was always just a lot more enjoyable in person. And there's a huge disconnect. It's just a little bit funny because now my whole business is digital, but I'm doing something else. But certainly in that environment, I just craved that sort of in-person experience and what that could create. So I think, we did the best that we could. And a lot of the gyms in the area stayed open. Had I not have just had a baby, we probably, maybe would have made a different decision. But for my family, for what we wanted, we had in March of 2020, we had about 215 members at the gym. We kind of said to ourselves, okay, we need to be back over 150 by, I think it was maybe October, November. And we were at about 115. So we were still we're down 100 members, which
it's a lot.
Is a lot. And then, when you factor in, okay, I have this baby now, and, we have our daughter was fortunately able to go to daycare at that time, or for the majority of it. Okay, so now I have to hire a nanny so that I can coach at the gym. And we're talking about like a $5 swing. I was like, is this really worth, we paid our staff, $25 an hour. I'm going to pay a nanny $20 an hour. I'm going to be doing this to make $5. Is this?
Yeah.
It was definitely my middle moment when I think about, all the pivots that I've had in my life.
Yeah.
But that's sort of how we ended up there.
Something you mentioned that has really made my brain kind of light on fire is this idea of how you went from so much physical to so much digital and not physical. I imagine that has to be a really hard change.
Big time.
Yeah.
Like me as a human.
Yeah. Just you as a human to go from your work being very physical, very in-person oriented to completely digital and very thinking and thought oriented. I just, that is a complete life change.
Yeah, it was. And, my background, so before I owned the gym, my background was in corporate marketing. So that's sort of where I earned my stripes, so to speak. And I'd always always wanted to own a gym. That was always something that it's like, it would be fun, way more fun than this is if I had a gym. I owned a gym, and my husband, I met, he was actually running a CrossFit gym, a different gym with his brother. And so I met my husband at the CrossFit gym, and we had the opportunity to buy the gym that we ended up running for 5 years. And so I kind of there's some intricacies of running a CrossFit gym that I would not have known if my husband hadn't already had that experience. But I came into owning a small business with a lot of business experience. And so now I'm in a place where I am a business and marketing mentor and I have a social media marketing agency, but I'm really supporting the person that I was when I owned a gym.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of been this marriage of my two worlds of this, corporate business growth background
Mm-hmm.
with being a small business owner and all of the things that come with that. In my job, I now try to create simplicity for people in their life and their business, because it's, being a mom's a full-time job, being a business owner is a full-time job, and then you slam them together and you've got yourself, I'm going to talk about the middle.
Yeah.
Big middle moment. Going from a place where, our gym was about 2,100 square feet. I was doing, 10,000, 12,000 steps a day in a 2,100 square foot box to being fully digital. Yeah, there's definitely been some change there. I miss seeing people every day.
Mm-hmm.
I am so grateful for the internet and for my Instagram friends in the communities. We're both part of Hey Mama,
Yeah.
in the communities where we can connect with other women that are working from home. But yeah, it's been that's been a big change. So trying to find ways to, I still exercise regularly, but to find additional movement in my day, even just for my mental health.
That's what I was really where I went to, is that for your mental health to have to be so intentional, and I can't even imagine.
It's been a journey. This is the
Yeah.
middle. When you said at the beginning, you asked me what the middle. I was like, I know what moment we're going to talk about, but I still feel like this has been a long, extended middle. There are certainly aspects of, when I think back to, 2020 and that year and all the change that it brought, there are aspects of it that feel complete. When I that middle moment, certainly I don't have the gym anymore, and I, feel, I don't know, clean's the word that's coming up for me. Like I'm not wearing that anymore, like that loss, that there's no sense of shame there or guilt.
Today's episode of Sharing the Mddl is brought to you by Next Door Goddess Handcrafted Jewelry. If you've been a listener of Sharing the Mddl, you know that I love this vibrant jewelry that's inspired by the Mediterranean coast. It helps you embrace and celebrate your beauty. Each element is sourced from a small business, handcrafted in small batches, and only made while the creator is in their best mood. Vicki is one of my favorite people in the world, and she's their creative director, so I know that you will be receiving pieces that are not only beautiful, but will make you feel amazing too. I literally just put on my Tina in the Sun Golden Sunstone hoop earrings. I needed a little pick-me-up, and I wanted to add a little sunshine in my life, and I feel great. Head to nextdoorgoddess.com and get 10% off your first purchase by signing up for the newsletter, with free shipping on all domestic orders. Release your inner goddess today. You're starting to talk about something that I am very interested in, was there a marker for you that said this middle is done? Because I would think that the decision to close the gym is getting there, but I don't necessarily think that would be truly the end for you.
No, I think, for me, when I think about fitness and like working in fitness in general, certainly doing things digitally killed it for me. And so like I used to love it. Now, I did it for a little bit online even after we closed the gym. And I was just like, I just don't love this. It's not the same. There's something really special about being in a CrossFit gym. And not just because it's, people get fit there, but it really is community, it's family, and owning a CrossFit gym is a really unique beast because you're dealing with people that like feel a sense of ownership, like this is their home. I joke that I received unsolicited business advice for 5 years, and so there's very little that anyone could say to me about my business that would hurt my feelings because I just it for 5 years. But I think for me, like the marker of being like, okay, this feels done, was really like, it feels complete. I've closed the door on this. Really, I think for me, it was when my other business started to take off and realizing that I could impact people's lives in a different way. Like for me, part of what I loved about the gym was being able to like watch a person change, a person that, maybe came into the gym feeling a lack of confidence, not knowing what they were capable of. And one of the really cool things about CrossFit is you're always like doing things for the first time, whether it's like lifting this heavy weight that you've never done or doing your first pull up. That's sort of, there's an aspect of sport to it that I always loved that. I loved still to this day, people, just the other day I had a text message I have a podcast of my own, and had a message from a member who I hadn't talked to in a little while saying, I just wanted to let you know that like your podcast is incredible. I love it. Like, it's just another way that you've changed my life, that you're going to continue to change my life.
Oh, I want to take a moment there. Like, how freaking cool is that?
So cool.
I think people don't share those kinds of things to think that they're being cheesy or too much. And it's like, no. Most of the time, like podcasts, for example, you feel like you're in a vacuum. So
Yeah.
just those little notes are amazing.
So amazing.
Absolutely.
And I just had to sit and cry for a minute because it was just like,
Yes.
oh. And so, that part of the gym was what felt difficult, the most difficult to break was,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I was taking away or closing a place for some people that, they really felt this sense of like, no, this is my home. This is the place where, I became who I want to be. And so for me now as a business coach and a business mentor, to be able to give people that, but in a different area of their life, and be able to create, change for them in new ways by helping them grow their business and they can make more money, and what that does for their family. I have a client who I just started working with in January, and she did, and I don't always like to talk about numbers because I think there's so much more to that, but
Absolutely.
the story, the story is worth sharing. She made in the first quarter of this year more than she made in all of last year.
Woo!
Just by like putting up some boundaries, like setting some better expectations, like amazing, right? And for her, yes, okay, great, we're making more money. But the thing, she said to me is like, this is going to allow me, she's a person that has PCOS and desires to have another child, but hasn't been able to do that because they've been under financial strain. And she's like, you've changed my life. You've given, by like creating this, you've changed my life because now I know that I have the business that's going to support me so that we can complete my family. Like, you don't know how powerful that is. And so for me, I'm always going to be a champion of women. I'm a huge champion of women, and being able to have people see themselves in the world in a little bit of a different way. Now I do it through business, whereas before I did it by making you physically strong, making you mentally strong, and also, helping you to create the life that you desire without sacrificing your sanity in the process. I think for me, the feeling of that door closing with the gym was knowing that I could still create that change in a person, but just in a different way.
I love, like, you're about transformation, not necessarily transforming somebody's body, but probably transforming their relationship with their body. Like you were talking about with business, the same thing. And it's so interesting to hear you say that, because that is essentially the middle, right? The transformation, that's what you're helping with, because there's the start, the transformation, and then the finish. So you're all over the middle.
I am literally all over the middle. That's why you're like, what? How do you define the middle? I was like, I think my whole life is the middle, and that's okay. And certainly there have been like messier middles, but no, I love helping people navigate their middle.
I usually like to end the conversation with a piece of advice, whether that's something you would have told yourself in your middle moment, or maybe just a piece of advice that you would use or that you've used every day in your life. What would you impart with our listeners?
Yeah, there's a couple that are coming in for me. Can I share too?
Absolutely.
One that comes up for me is this idea of like being good, not nice. And I think oftentimes as women and mothers, regardless of whether, we're in career or in business, we always have this sense that like we just need to be nice. And usually in being nice, that's what comes back and bites us. That's what actually ends up getting us hurt, or somebody backstabs you or disappoints you, or the client falls through on the contract that they were supposed to pay, or whatever it may be, right? And so one thing that I really try to embody when I'm in a season of middle, when I'm trying to make change in my life, is to choose to be a good person and not necessarily a nice person. I think, men don't worry about whether they're being nice, right? This seems to be an inherently female thing. And I would rather you describe me as a good person than a nice person. I do nice things, but at the end of the day, I do the right thing, right? And the right thing might be me saying no to you. And it might be saying no to an opportunity. And being a good person with boundaries is going to help you so much more in the season of middle than just trying to be nice to everybody, because in being nice, you're like giving up a part of yourself.
I love that. And I relate so hard to that, because that's kind of something I've been working on a lot in my life. I phrase it as, I want to be kind, not nice, because
Okay, I like
kindness is harder. Because
that.
kindness is being proactive and saying, I really don't think that's for you, or you know what I mean? Whereas
Yeah.
nice is is timid, whereas kindness is active. So
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. And I like that you take it kind of a step farther of, I'm going to be a good person.
Yeah.
And I just really like that. So thank you.
Oh,
What's your
I love
second
that.
one?
I like kind of nice. Yeah, I think for me, like, being a good person matters to me.
Yeah.
Doing the right thing in my business, in my life, like that matters to me. You thinking I'm nice doesn't matter to me, right? Like
Yeah.
usually by proxy, right? You're
Yeah.
likable because you're a good person, but being nice usually is what comes back to bite you because in being nice, you're usually sacrificing a boundary or doing something you normally wouldn't do, and that's when then you're often taken advantage of. So that's one. And then the other one is just a sense of like asking for help, which most of us are really bad at for whatever reason. And I'm bad at it too. And just knowing that like I'm a firm believer that you can have it all in your life, but you don't need to do it all. And in order to not do it all, you have to ask for help.
Yeah.
And sometimes that looks like hiring out help, right? I'm in the process of hiring literally like a housekeeper because I can't keep up with dishes, laundry, meal prep, things like that. I just had to acknowledge that about myself with where I'm at in my business and my life. And that's okay. Doesn't make me a bad mom, doesn't make me a
It is
bad person.
absolutely okay.
Totally okay. And
Yes.
so I think if you're in a season of middle and you're feeling like you're on the journey and you're like, I don't know when the end is coming, we're talking about that definition at the beginning. I think, asking for help and like knowing that there's actually strength in asking for help, it's not a sign of weakness.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really enjoyed chatting with you, Laura.
This was so fun. Thank you so much, Lacey.
You can find links to Laura's Instagram, website, and all that good stuff in the show notes. And you can even jump right over now to listen to Laura's podcast, This Mother Means Business, right now in your podcatcher of choice. As usual, thank you for sharing the middle with me today. Remember to check out my writings at themddl.com. That's the MDDL.com. While you're there, you can sign up for the weekly newsletter to get a little bit more middle in your inbox each week. I am a one-woman show, so any bit of support means the world to me. I want the middle to be as accessible as possible, so I have several ways for you to support. You can shop the middle with some merch or my books, the Lacey Loves affiliate links and recommended products, Patreon for additional community and content, and I also just have a tip jar if you'd like to leave a tip. If you like today's show, also make sure to subscribe at your favorite podcatcher, share with a friend, and maybe even leave a 5-star review. Thanks so much to Lemon Music Studio for our theme music. It is literally called Sunshine, and that is certainly how it feels to me. Can't wait to see you in the middle again. Thanks for sharing the middle with me. As always, I hope you've been able to see a little bit of yourself in the story we shared today. Don't forget to follow, share, rate, review, and follow me on social media at Lacey Shares. You can always check out the Joyful Support Movement at joyfulsupportmovement.com and see all of the amazing goodness we have there, like No Shame in the Home Game, Pops of Joy, courses, resources, and of course, the Joyful Support Village. All right, now go out there and spread some joy.